Turn up, boy.
Hey, what's up, everybody? We live? It looks like we are. So sorry, y'all. I was late. I had to take a quick shower real quick before I had to jump on and get my little Peloton in. But while we wait for Dante to join in, I believe we're gonna have a real good show as usual today. I believe we're gonna get want to get started in this whole college football playoff drama. And then we're gonna dive in some NFL, in particular the NFC East. Well, not really the NFC East, the NFC and the whole drama that's going on between the top three teams over there. So, let's start with the whole college football playoffs. So as we see, when it was determined Sunday morning, the top four seeds will be Michigan, number one, Washington at number two, uh, University of Texas number three, and Alabama, which was the stunner, at number four. So of course, with Alabama being out, that leaves Florida State. Well, with Alabama being in, I'm sorry, that leaves Florida State out. So that caused a whole lot of drama in the whole college football world. How can you leave an undefeated Power Five conference champion out of the tournament? And it came down to it that the committee believed that because the loss of a significant player in Jordan Travis, that their quarterback, that they didn't believe, they didn't see fit to put them over Alabama, who just beat at the time the number one overall seed in Georgia. And me personally, I don't have an issue with how the four seeds came out to be. I was under the mindset if Alabama makes it in, Texas has to be in. It's just like you can't put Alabama in without Texas. Um, and that's just because of whole head to head. So with the committee, I felt like the committee, the criteria that the committee has spoken about. Whenever I see them, a lot of time they join the college game day on ESPN, and the I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the commissioner of the committee, the chairman of the committee, he comes and he speaks, especially since they started the whole playoff seeding, I believe, like 4 weeks ago. And the biggest thing that they always say they take the most weight in is head to head competition. A lot of time people think of strength of schedule, but the committee actually looks at strength of record. And then you have the current seedings, of course, your record. And then there's one that is, what's up, Dante?
Wow.
Um, there's one in particular that I don't think that people really knew about, and that is in their criteria. They actually have a place in there where if a team loses a significant player, they will look at that in determining the top four seeds for the playoffs. And in this case, that was Florida State. So they kept their criteria true with the Texas winning the head to head versus Alabama. A lot of people, especially SEC biased folks, they didn't know how to act if if not one SEC team was going to be in the playoffs. They basically very entitled, I believe. And it's like they was trying to hold the fact that Texas beat Alabama, but it was early in the season. It was week two. Like it doesn't matter. I mean, they holds weight the same week two as in week 10. And they like to say, well, Jalen Monroe is not the same quarterback. Then, well, Quinn Ewers is not as well. You know, the whole Texas team has improved as a whole as well. So, and to add to the fact that UT beat Alabama at Tuscaloosa.
True
So
road game.
that's a whole lot of weight. So that's why I was making the point earlier, Dante. I was like, if Alabama could not get in the top four without Texas. If you put Alabama number two, then damn it, Texas will have to be number one. Texas is going to have a seed above Alabama at all times. And then with the sort of the biggest, weight that a lot of Florida State fans was looking at the time, because their strength of schedule. But that's not what the committee looks at when it comes to the playoff. They look at strength of record, and
Yeah.
out the top four teams, or out the six teams, including Alabama and Georgia, Florida State, I believe, had the highest strength of record. So they was like, okay, this is one of your criterias. This can put us at the top four. But unfortunately for them, they also had another Florida State also met another criteria that the committee had, was that was a loss of a significant player. If this was a receiver or a running back, they may would have had Florida State still in in the top four. But because you use a quarterback who was a Heisman candidate, yeah, and then at the time they lost them late. So it's not like they lost them early in the season and they was able to show the committee what they can do without their Heisman quarterback. Because when they lost Travis, that offense just looked it was
Yeah.
not the
It
same.
looked totally different. And what I'll say about it is this: not only did you lose them late in the season against a bad Florida team, they did not look good, and it was one of those situations. As of course rooting for Texas to get in at the time, I was just like, it'd be great if the committee didn't have to make the decision of Florida State or Texas or Alabama. So I was hoping go ahead and lose to Florida, and then everything will be fine. It looked like that way for a minute. Then they pulled away from the game. But late in that game, the backup quarterback got hurt too. He got basically on like a dirty hit, and he got hit, and he was concussed, and so he wasn't able to go. Like he suited up, but he wasn't really available to play, and they had to start a true freshman. So starting that true freshman, for everyone that says, "Hey, Florida State was snubbed," I feel like that's a very valid point to say, "Hey, they felt like, hey, we were a Power Five champion, won our conference, didn't win a game." I want to say their big wins, even if some of their big wins didn't look as bright, it could end up being we beat the Heisman Trophy candidate, and we're gonna get into that next as far as the Heisman guys. But beating LSU in a neutral site game, and then beating Clemson, and then that Louisville win. But that Louisville win, I mean, they just got knocked around the week before by Kentucky. So they was a part of the one loss team. So that was going to really strengthen their record. Things fell bad for them from the injury to the quarterback Jordan Travis, to Louisville losing in a rivalry game before the ACC championship, and then obviously the way they looked the last 2 weeks. Because as far as the question is up on there, did Florida State get snubbed? I'm going to say, obviously, I look biased in the situation, but I'm going to say this: that team did not look the odds. It was tough to watch that game, and I'm watching it with the interest of I want them to lose, and it's just like from the
I thought
standpoint that
Louisville actually had a chance of winning that game because
Louisville had
it
a
was just
chance
so
when they
ugly.
blocked that punt. Louisville blocks a punt and recovers it at like the 10-yard line, and the Louisville quarterback just threw a pick in the end zone. And I don't know what he was looking at when I was just like, and I was thinking, I was like, man, the committee's gonna have a tough time. But earlier in the day, when Texas dominated Oklahoma State like that, and then they dominated the last two performances for them were complete dominant performances. I felt good the way that they came out and Quinn Ewers. He hadn't looked that good since probably the Alabama game, or I know it was another game in there
Yeah,
where he
he
was.
has a tendency of kind of being like a plateau during regular games, but in the big games he steps up. So
Oh
I
yeah,
guess that's cool, but he does plateau in regular games.
yeah, he has times where it's just like and then like as far as Texas, them matching up, I think everybody kind of wanted Michigan, even though like it sounds weird. Everybody kind of wanted Michigan. Who I really was trying to avoid was actually Georgia, because I was like they were unknown. I'm like they could play really great and they can come out really good like they had in weeks. And then like because I definitely thought the path was winning was for Georgia to get in. And I was completely wrong. I thought for Georgia to win, but actually they might have knocked Texas's loss down just a little bit. So beating the SEC champ, once it happened, I thought about it like, okay, they're gonna win. They're gonna get in because that committee is looking at it. And I know people get upset, but college football is more of it is a lot about the pageantry and the show and the product. Like people say, and that's why you can't compare the two. But if Patrick Mahomes got hurt and then he still makes the playoffs, I was like, yeah, it's a totally different set of rules. It's like, hey, you make the playoffs by, and they have tiebreakers and a whole lot of things. Nowhere in the rules is it that rule about, if a player and it changes
Yeah,
how
it's
that team
strictly
looks.
based on
That
records. Strictly
that
based on
rule
records.
that rule is not in place for the pro game. And so, guys got to eat it. I know people say, hey, this is reason for them to leave the ACC. And I'm like, no, this playoff is expanding. Don't rush to a decision. Stay in the conference, beat up on the weaker conference. You just do have the pressure to be like, hey, we can maybe lose one, but we got to definitely lose we got to win the conference title and hope Clemson comes back to life. Hope that, the other smaller teams that they're adding, maybe that they can make them stronger. Like I want to say, who are they adding? I think they're adding SMU and I think one of the Pac-12 schools. I don't know if it's
And that don't make
Cal.
no sense, man.
It's real weird. And so this is the last year of normalcy that we're gonna get with college football for a while. This is the last time we're gonna get it. Needless to say, I'm happy that Texas made it. It's one of those deals where they haven't won a conference championship since 2009, and just the fact that just seeing especially from working at the stadium, I was there. I think I worked the game where they played Oklahoma, and to see Oklahoma win is one thing. But I want to say one of the ones I was one of the people protecting the guys from like if the fans want to run onto the field. So I see the
Hmm.
confetti falling, and I'm like, God, they gave me the worst position. You're supposed to be neutral, but in my mind I'm like, bro, I hate Oklahoma. So I'm seeing the confetti, I'm seeing them win, and it's just like, yo, this. And then they're saying, hey, this is it was like their sixth or seventh in a row, and then they didn't win these last couple years, so it's like wow, and it's just great to see them go out on top of the Big 12 because they were treated in a bad way, just well not a bad way, but just it was a lot of unprofessionalism, a lot of pettiness with the way they left him. So to lead the Big 12 on top and just dominated the last few games, that was great to see. Michigan, their style of football was featuring its transition in them. Their style of football and the way they want to run and play football and play physical. I don't know if that's the best way to beat Bama, but I will say this: Jalen Milroe is a lot. I will say this: while the win still holds weight for Texas, Jalen Milroe looks like a lot better player now and a lot more comfortable at this point in the season. And I will say of the quarterbacks we have left, which is another reason why it was the right decision to leave Florida State off. JJ McCarthy looks really good for Michigan at times. He looks a lot more. I thought last year he was a complete joke. I was just like Michigan still can't get a quarterback. He looks a lot better. Jalen Murrow, like I just mentioned, looks phenomenal. Michael Penix, he could be the Heisman Trophy winner, but I want to say some Heisman Trophy voters are going to be like, he led them. He said Eagles will win Sunday. I don't think that's gonna happen. We're definitely gonna get into that later, but I do think his performance of leading that team to a victory, especially a comeback win in a big game, being undefeated, that's going to hold a lot of weight with the voters. But just the statistical season that Jay Daniels had,
Hmm.
just the numbers. And I heard someone say this, and this was a pro LSU person. They basically said all the LSU defense had to do was to be a bad defense. But instead of being a bad defense, they were historically all time bad defense. And that's what got them with the record that they have. And they win a game or two more. They're in the SEC West race, and I think he's a shoe in for the Heisman. But like he
I
got
know.
injured to play that fourth quarter against Bama. And so, he caught some bad breaks too.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I personally think Bama was kind of the momentum was changing. Even when Monroe, not when Daniels was on the field, the momentum was kind of changing towards Alabama. So I think they would have still came out and took that game, even if Daniels never got injured. But a lot of people, and you hear it, many people believe that the committee they did not want to have a repeat of last year, the championship game with
Yeah.
TCU and Georgia. Now, a lot of people will say, well, you can't really get mad because TCU earned that spot. If you want to get mad at the team, get mad at Michigan because people had an issue with TCU being voted in the top four, but they proved that they belong because they beat Michigan. If they wasn't a team that was never, because I believe they beat it was either Ohio State or Alabama for that final spot, and
I think it might have been
people,
Bama because I think Bama was left out, but it was the
yeah,
fact that Ohio State got in beside not being a conference champion, but the way they played Georgia and the way Georgia was dominant in the other end in the game against TCU, you can say, hey, look, they earned their spot, and
yeah.
you can always say for Ohio State, how does that game look if Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't get concussed?
Well, with
And you
TCU, I know the North are getting around. 'Cause remember, TCU was undefeated, but then they
undefeated,
lost against K
K State.
State in the Big 12 championship game.
And the committee has a favorable opinion of K State, and I do think that did come into play. Last year came into play while still respecting TCU enough to get them there, and then also respecting them enough. I want to say I think they lost their last game of the season, and they didn't drop out of the top 25, which is something else that helped Texas. So when you make that case, it was like Texas was able to beat the SEC. Start off with they beat the SEC champ, they beat a ranked Oklahoma State team, and they beat a Kansas State team without their starting quarterback. And that's probably they probably didn't get much into their case because they put them in the 3 slot, but they're moving up from 7 and Bama moving up from 8. I mean, you have things that happen where you have an impressive victory over a Georgia team that was on a 29 game winning streak. So it's like I feel people that want to say, hey, this people got if anything, Texas got like you can't say the favoritism card because they've been down for over a decade. So it's like it's not more so a
Yeah,
favoritism.
somebody on the internet was
Got
trying to use that
hot take.
whole favoritism card by
And,
UT. I'm like, nah, man, you
and
can't.
then
There's no favoritism if they. The thing about with Texas and Alabama, it wasn't like if it was Alabama, the decision if Oregon would have won the Pac-12, and then the
yeah,
decision and Texas lost or something like that. Well, it wasn't like if Texas was completely out the race and it was between Oregon and Alabama, two teams that did not play each other, and then they trying to vie for one of those that final spot in the playoff. So people are like, well, you know, Alabama is in a better conference or whatnot. No, the thing between Alabama and Texas, the benefit they had, those teams actually played each other, and Texas beat Alabama at Alabama.
and I
So
appreciate the
that was
penalty
that
put in
that was
the
that weight. You know, you can kind of massage it all you want. There was a lot of either there was Alabama fans or just SEC fans. They were trying to massage it, make it look like. I found it interesting that a lot of them was going back to the past. Whereas the
yeah,
Alabama, they playing, how much championships or playoffs they went to compared to Texas. SEC has been the dominant conference. Okay, yeah, it's all fine and dandy, but that has nothing to do with the 2023 votes.
yeah,
And the fact is, you lost at home to this team. So you
yeah,
got to carry that weight unless Texas lost another game. If y'all would have met, if it came down and y'all had the same record, Texas will always hold the upper hand on you because they beat you. They handle it on the field. So no matter whatever try to, other opinions of subjective, things they try to come up with, the objective point is that team beat you on your field by double digits. So you're going to have to hold that L, and hopefully you Texas would have gained another L to drop out. So, but the committee saw that they made sure. But the interesting thing before we get to the Heisman candidate piece, okay, so Michigan was number one, and Washington, which I think Texas maybe. I haven't looked at no favorites and stuff, but I think Texas may be the favorite against that game with
Texas,
Washington.
Texas,
Cause they
Texas
could
is
score. They could score with Washington, but Texas have some sort of a defense. Washington don't. It's like a
Washington.
revolving door. There'll be a shootout after
That
shootout.
I do think it's going to be a shootout, and I think Texas can win that one. But yeah, Texas is favorite in their game. I want to say it was by 4 I had seen, and I want to say the game against the Michigan is favored by when I first see it initially, it was 2.5, and
Well,
so
that's interesting to me because you can see that clip, and I didn't really think
down to one and a
too
half.
much
Down
of
to
it because it looked like they were just a focused team. They were just curious who they was going to play. But you saw that clip that was making its round on social media when Michigan they already knew they was number one seed. Now they
1.5.
waiting to find out who they're going to play. Whether it's going to be Alabama versus Florida State. Hell, even not even Georgia because I think how the committee revealed the teams. They revealed 1, 2, 3, and then they went
Hmm.
down to 6 and 5.
Yeah,
So well 6. So it's just a difference between 4 and 5. But when they revealed that it was going to be Alabama as number 4, who will ultimately have to play Michigan, you saw like a delayed
yeah. It
cheer
was like
going on.
it was like a clap, and it was one of those lit. And then, in this best case, if you want to ask if Florida State was snubbed, take Alabama as the 4 seed, take that off, and then play Florida State as the 4 seed, and watch you don't see them jumping up and down, beating their chest because right now Florida State has to play that type of football, and that's Michigan style, and they were gonna lean on them. They were gonna lean, they were gonna lean
I
on them.
think Michigan
And what,
probably would have been a better style against the Alabama of old when they was more about running the ball. But when Saban transformed, I think it was really with Tua. Uh, it was with Tua or Matt Jones that
it was let me see. I
when
think
they
it
started
was
doing a whole lot more air attack.
it was Hurts, and then Tua took over for Hurts,
Yeah,
and it was one of those deals because it was like I remember it, and that's one of the reasons I did not. I know again it hurts later. I did not really just put a lot of stock in him. It's like you had all these type of receivers, and they didn't trust you to go and throw the football, and then Tua was right there, and he comes in, saves the day, and I was just like, I don't know if I could buy it. He looked better at Oklahoma, but I was clearly wrong on that one. He was definitely a much better passer of the football than I anticipated, and it showed. But Georgia, I mean, when Bama was able to beat Georgia, and the fact that they're on such a high streak, that's a big win in the SEC. Coming from back and hearing everything, coming off the momentum from really, they should have lost the game against Auburn. They absolutely should have lost that game. But when you get those opportunities, you seize it and you win, and you come on to win the SEC.
yeah,
They got a
survivor's
Michigan got a
advantage.
they have a dog fight on their hands. That's why I think they're a 1.5 point favorite at this point. Also, you can bet bonds get betted up and betted down for whatever how that works with Vegas. Um, I do think there is a chance that it could be Texas Alabama rematch in the
Mm.
national title game,
I think
and
that
I
would be a
think
hell of a game. That'd
that
be a
would
hell of a
be
game.
that would be a hell of a game. I'd be a little nervous about it, but I'd still be like, hey, we beat them once, and I know they're gonna have a different game
I
plan.
think the loss of Worthy for Texas is going to be proved to be big.
Work now. I haven't heard anything about him
But I don't
playing.
know. Hopefully he may heal up by then though.
It's one of those days where I know it's probably like with all the time off. I would say he's probably gonna definitely give it a go.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's kind of a deal. He was able to rest the later part of that game, the conference championship game, and it's just you hope that you can have your full complement, minus the guys that got in the portal already. But I'm just interested to see how the playoff goes. It's just exciting to be like, as far as being a fan of Texas, not being to the point where it's just like, you know what? Let's look at see what is it the early national signing day is coming up, and normally that's what you're looking forward to. Like, okay, who can we get out the portal? National signing day, and then the bowl is an afterthought. Like last year, the Texas Bowl or the Alamo Bowl, whichever one it was, it was an afterthought. It was an absolute afterthought because it's like, hey, who we gonna get? Who's gonna stay? Who's gonna go? All right,
Marcus,
Marcus said,
he's glad that the Longhorns are in, but he wish that the 18
yeah,
playoff. Yeah, well, we're gonna get that next year. It will
we're gonna get
end a
that.
lot of this drama that we
A
see.
lot of the drama goes. I do think 12 is too many. I think we're going to get blowouts. But the last point I want to make before we get into the Heisman race is this. Last year, we actually, it haven't been very many. Like, I think there's been like 28 playoff games. Normally, they're blowouts. Last year, we got two good semifinal games. That
Yeah,
Georgia, man, that Georgia and Ohio State game was really good, and that TCU and Michigan game was great. And I'm glad the committee saw that. Look, I know everybody's gonna point at the TCU game and say nobody wanted another that. Never forget that Florida State likely was not going to advance like TCU advanced. That was still a good team that advanced, and they just ran into an all-time great Georgia team. And for a topic for another day, speaking on the Heisman winner, I'd have loved to see the 2019 LSU team versus last year's Georgia team because that team was absolutely dominant and had so many drafted guys on that defense. I would have loved to see like as far as a mythical matchup, those kind of matchup. I know most people will go with the LSU team. I probably would myself, but just to see it for how much great talent was on those fields. But speaking of LSU and Heisman winners, to me, I feel like Jay Daniels is kind of like he's in the catbird seat, but I do feel that like I think they wanted Bo Nix. It felt like a push from them, like Bo Nix for being on the winning team and his story from coming from Auburn and transferring. I felt like that was a story thing they wanted to go with, but I wouldn't. I would. To me, I'm not gonna be mad if Penix wins it for the winning, and being in the Northwest and winning, and it's not just the most populous area in the media attention, playing those Pac-12 after dark games. I do feel like, hey, I wouldn't be mad if he won it. I wouldn't be mad if Jay Daniels won it on a historically great season. I don't think after losing that Pac-12 title game, I don't think you should give it to Bo Nix just because you got somebody in that same game that should win it, over him because
I think it's going
he
to be
played well all year long.
Heisman. I believe it's going to be Penix. Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, you got an undefeated. It's basically a dude with 3 losses versus a dude with 2 losses with Knicks, and then Penix. He's undefeated, so he's undefeated. He's going to be in the playoffs. So I just think just by default it's going to be him
Hmm.
because you have to really explain why he posted his share of numbers.
Yeah,
Jaden Daniels obviously he has better numbers, but he had three
yeah,
losses. So your team didn't advance as much. I just find it interesting. Two of the candidates are actually 6-year players because the whole COVID
yeah,
extra year they got from COVID, and they transferred from another school. I think Penix from Illinois, of course, the Knicks
no,
from
Indiana.
Auburn, Indiana, yeah,
Yeah,
Indiana, and then Knicks was in Auburn before coming up to Oregon. Um, and look at what Marcus put. Do you believe a Pac-10, I guess Pac-12 quarterback deserves the Heisman? Yeah,
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 they've been a
because right
relatively
now the Pac-12 QBs are outshining the only SEC play. Well, no, this was just with Jaden Daniels. He's the closest by far. You heard something about Bowers, the tight end for
yeah,
Georgia, but he's out of it now.
yeah.
And
Well,
I didn't
yeah,
see him. I didn't
he
see
he
him
dropped
going.
out. He dropped out of the race. The finalists were and he's not going to win, but he's a fantastic player.
Marvin Harrison
Marvin
Jr.
Harrison Jr. was a great person to put in there. And if he could have had a few more big games, he had a legit shot. Jay Daniels, Bo Nix, and Michael
Michael
Penix.
Penix.
And so I feel like if you look at the Pac-12, I'll put it like this. Of course, SEC had number one Georgia, and they had Alabama at number 8 in the conference title game, but you still had Washington there in the top 4 as the number 4 team in the country facing the number 5 team in the country. So that was a really competitive, conference title game. And so, it was pretty interesting to see that they, in the last year of that league and its current construction, with the quarterbacks that transferred in and the talent that was there that all hit. Because to be honest, Penix has the places like, look, he outplayed the previous prize winner. He outplayed Bo Nix twice, a finalist. So when you look at it, Sonny, you might be right. And I was listening to, so I can't remember what show I was listening to earlier. They was like, man, I kind of feel like last minute the voters are going to be like Michael Penix, and it's not like that. Washington is in a prestigious program, so that all that kind of stuff matters with the Heisman stuff in college. That stuff matters. And so it could come down to that, like, oh, we feel this way, and he's a winner in this, 13-0, and the best thing about it is you hear the hype all year long. And I know bowl season, the awards and stuff, you get to find out Saturday night, up in New York, and figure out who's gonna be the next person to enter that Heisman club. And I don't know, I'm going back and forth, but I wouldn't be mad at Penny winning it all. Hey, Nova, I appreciate the support. Marcus,
I
I
see.
appreciate you chipping in as always. Hey, Marcus, I know Marcus Evans. I know
Yeah,
we said we are gonna get into it later, but I think the Cowboys are basically division teams. It's even as good as especially as good as the Cowboys and the Eagles have been these last few years. Um, you're normally going to win your home game against a division rival. Sometimes you get that weird thing where you win on their road and then they beat you on the road too. I think the Cowboys are going to hold serve and win on the home field. They're on I want to say, a 14 game home winning streak. I know Philly would definitely be a team to top that. I know Philly's coming off of a tough loss, and we're gonna get into all that later. But I do think the Cowboys are gonna pull this one out. It's gonna be a tough one, but the way that Philadelphia secondary is, the way that Philadelphia secondary is, The Ravens actually they're close to the top seed right now, and they're doing that thing. But I think the Cowboys the quarterback play right now and the way their defense is just so porous. And but back on the Heisman race, I I'm excited that it is not the normal characters, the normal schools to have LSU, who's not always in the mix, but is a power school, but to have LSU in the mix, to have Ohio State, a power brand, but you kind of like he's there just for his greatness and the career he's had. It's kind of like that's a respect factor. But to see Penix in Oregon there, I think that's great. I think that's absolutely great. And it's good for the transfer portal. I know a lot of people don't like it. I do. Don't be a guy like Bo Nix who had enough talent, who looked good early on in his Auburn career, but then it flipped. And now he transferred and had a great good rest of his career. Had a really good rest of his career with there. And now he goes off, and I don't mind guys being there that 6th year because this is a rarity thing. Where I think we're almost at the point where the COVID year is going to be run out, and then it's going to turn into the grad transfer year, just those. So I think we're almost done with that, but it's just great to see good football play in a conference. And man, it's going to be tough to see the Pac-12 go, but we still get some of it when you see the Big
Yeah, they
Ten.
turned from the Pac-12 to the Pac-2, and I know
Yeah.
Marcus mentioned. I saw in the comments about Bo Nix putting up some better numbers. I'm like, I forgot the exact head-to-head between Penix and Nix, but the biggest
I can
number,
give it to
Penix
you
got
real
him. Penix beat him twice. So
beat him twice.
once in,
Yeah,
it was a shootout in game one. It was really a kind of a shootout in both of them, but yeah, he
because
he
he had to
beat
come back.
Nix twice.
Yeah. Penix had 4,218 air yards at passing, and then he had 33 touchdowns against 9 picks. On the ground side, he wasn't really much of a factor. He only had like 3 rushing touchdowns, which way it looked up, they were probably like sneaks. And so
Hmm.
let me see. I'll pull up, and I can say for a fact I do think Bo Nix is overall his stats. I think they were gaudy because they ran it up at times. But yeah, his passing yards was 4,145 passing yards, 40 touchdowns for 3 picks. That's what's super impressive. And on the ground, Bo
Yep.
Nix,
Yeah,
he
he
had
put up the numbers. It's just the biggest one. He
228
lost twice against Penix.
228 rushing yards and 6 TDs, so a total of accounting for 46 TDs. That's pretty impressive. But when it came down in the big games, you know, his counterpart was able to edge him, and I don't see unless it's a situation where I don't know statistically you just outshine someone that much, but you lost because your team
Yeah,
was
because
better
their stats are relatively close. But the
relatively.
two losses that the Oregon that Oregon had on their record, and the reason why they're not in the playoffs, you could thank Michael Penix for that. But let's because see now let's jump over into this NFL. I know we was touching on it a little bit. I see Marcus originally asked the question, do you believe the 49ers are the best
Hold
team?
on,
And
before we get in there, I want to adjust this time. Time is priceless. Did you watch that Florida State game? Did you watch those last 2 Florida State games? And did you watch? Were you? I wasn't able to watch it, but I didn't get to see the Alabama and Georgia game. I was getting updates. I was at a basketball tournament, so I just want to know.
he didn't he must have because that offense. See the thing about and they talk about Florida State's defense. Yes, they have a good defense, but the teams that they because like I say, Jordan Travis got hurt relatively late in the year. He got hurt against the what was that North Alabama game,
Yeah,
and so they only had what two two games to play without him,
yeah.
and
Louisville
that
and
was
Florida.
against Kentucky, not at
No, they
No,
played
no,
Louisville and
Louisville.
Florida,
Kentucky.
Florida and Louisville, and the offense looked terrible. So and Louisville, their quarterback, I believe was on the he was not playing good, and I believe they was also playing with a backup quarterback. One of the teams was playing, but basically the teams they played, the two teams they played after Travis was injured, they didn't have a good offense. Alabama has a good offense, so if that team found themselves down at any time, the way they looked like in them last two games, that offense couldn't score worth a damn. You might as well like, okay, you putting all this weight on your defense, but you going against a whole lot better competition right now. So if you put them against Alabama and the way Monroe's been playing, oh hell, man, it's just like it's damn near they score one touchdown, you're done. They was having a hard time even scoring a touchdown. It wasn't for that long run that they was able to get against Louisville. It's like, dude, yes, your defense is great, but your offense it can't click at all. So yeah, I don't believe that. I mean, it sucks for Florida State, but I mean, it
I mean,
is.
You
should
know
I
what
it
mean,
it
it's
reminded
deserve?
part
me
of the
of?
criteria. It's part of the criteria, like I mentioned back earlier. There is a piece where the committee will look at if you suffer a significant loss in the player on your roster, it will be in consideration when they determine these top four teams.
You
So it's
know,
not like they veered off their criteria. It's just unfortunate that Florida State was a team that
Hey,
found themselves in that situation.
you know what I'm gonna say about it? It's interesting to watch because they laid the plan for that. They laid the plan. Networks laid the plan for them to lead them out. Once they started to prop that up, that Alabama was going to be a possibility. And I watch everything that these people do because they do it all the time. I want you to think about this. The top Florida State person that you know in America is the man of the year for Colorado. The
true.
top man for Florida State that you know right now was on every commercial with Alabama's coach all year.
Hmm.
Then they run this out here when Florida State got a chance to be in the game, and then they tell you week after week after week, hold on, these two teams in the SEC. What if this team win? What if this team lose? And then they know that Texas beat Alabama at the beginning of the year when they stunk up the joint. We beat them by 10 points down in Alabama. The great Alabama, they beat them. All I'm saying is this. How is it logical for me to put even Washington or Michigan over Florida State when I can look at their conference and say the same thing? It's really not logical for me to say that. All I can
I
say
don't
is
know
that
about
they
that. The
all
ACC, if you look up the ACC versus the Pac-12 this year, not all time, but if you look at the Pac-12, Oregon was a pretty good team. We know that they basically beat down on USC. Like the whole conference beat down there because their defense was just horrible, and so they beat them down and pushed them down. But you had Washington, you basically had Utah that was a solid team all year long. You had Arizona that emerged that was a quality team. I mean, obviously, they pushed down, Coach Prime them in Colorado down. They was actually a solid conference. When you go and look at them versus the ACC, it gets tough because Clemson wasn't what Clemson was supposed to be. North Carolina with a quarterback that's gonna go top five were
going
not
for
what they were supposed to be, and that's
it.
what kind of hurt them. And if they were a little better, I think if they were a little better on the conference side, and the fact that they had looked just a little bit better, because I
I
think the
dig it.
committee just needed a little bit from them, and they just
Hey,
didn't. They just didn't look the part. Now it is going to
hey,
look bad if they beat Georgia. If they beat
I
Georgia,
dig
and
it.
it's going to
I
look
dig
bad.
it. This is what I hope happens. This is what I hope happens. I hope Alabama wins it all with that one loss. Florida State beats Georgia and everybody else loses. Just so the egg can go on their face. You see how I'm saying? Because this is a
Yep.
game. Because this reminded me of this season, though. Because I'm a Florida State fan for college football. This reminded me of Chris Winkie getting hurt and Marcus Allen taking the game against Tennessee and looking like trash. I understand it. I understand what happened, but you still have the opportunity to play the game and lose it because you didn't lose. So you won all your games. You're basically being punished for winning. You're being so in essence, we're saying winning isn't good enough, and it's the way that we're going to subject these players to playing. So you know what the players are going to do? The players, the young guys, are going to stop playing in these bowl games, and then they're going to start offering more money for them to play. Because think about it: if you were a college player and you played and you thought you was going to be in these next two games to make yourself look better for the draft, you don't get that opportunity. And then Jordan Travis loses all this money by getting hurt for playing college football.
Yeah, I'll say this: if you are, and I'll stand on this, if you after Jalen Smith and seeing how much he's still in the league, but it's not he was never the same. If you are not in the college football playoff or New Year's Six Bowl, if your draft position is not solidified yet, play. If you are Caleb Williams, nope, no need to play in the Holiday Bowl, sir. We don't need you. He's already opted out. If you were any type of situation like that, don't. But if you're the top creme de la creme, top of the top, your team has a chance to win a championship on your last year. whether you're leaving early or a senior, play in that bowl game, get that experience because you can't get that back. But the other bowl games, I would say no, don't do it, and that's just kind of commonplace now. A lot of the OGs hate it, some of the old people hate it, but then the thing is, are you gonna pitch in and help that guy recoup his multi-million-dollar value? Because when
Yeah,
he gets to the league, it's
you
not
guys know what's gonna happen. Y'all know what's gonna
so,
happen. Somebody's gonna set a precedent, and we gonna be a little bit older, and we gonna be mad. One of these young guys that could win a national championship, he ain't gonna play in it. That's what's gonna happen. They keep playing with fire. These things they playing with fire with this.
Yeah, and our black man brought up about if he was Florida State, they would not show up to the bowl game. And I also mentioned that he brought up a point that he believed that the college football should be basically kind of like the pros. Basically, you just strictly go by records. And that's hard to do in college football because what, 114, 117 teams? It's hard to
yeah.
go by records because before we had the committee, the college football committee, remember it was the BCS. People thinking the committee was as hell now. That BCS was,
The
I mean,
BCA was a nightmare.
yeah, it was, and that was just trying to choose two teams.
Yeah,
So it's hard to do it because it's so much teams. It's just a whole lot more teams compared to the 32 that's in the NFL. You got 117 now. Of course, all of those that 100 plus is not basically eligible for a trip to the playoff. But you got
And you know what?
somehow all these conferences, Pac-12 going to be Pac-2 next year with only Oregon
Yep.
State and Washington State
Yep.
staying.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the Power Five, which was originally ACC, Big 12,
SEC. Mm-hmm.
SEC, Big 10, and the Pac-12. That's gone. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to Pac-12 now, not in Pac-2.
they're not getting that
Um,
automatic spot.
yeah, so then it's just a
So,
whole lot. I mean, the Big 12 is not going to be the same because the two biggest money makers are leaving. So they still going to be the
Mm-hmm.
Big 12, but I think they actually going to be they're going to have more than 12, so like the Big 10.
Yeah,
yeah,
they're
they're
I
gonna
gonna
think
have.
have
call
a
it
bunch
the
of
Big 10
teams,
about
right?
14, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't I don't know. It's hard 'cause you got conference now with this. And Dante, you brought it up when the playoff extend to 12 teams next year. It's going to be some teams now. That will help all of this. You
No,
top
hold
12,
on. Think about it though,
but it's
guys.
going to be some ugly games though. It's going to be some ugly
But
games.
think about it. It helps clear it up, but it also puts the player in an opportunity to get hurt more. You got 3 more
Yeah,
games. It's ridiculous, bro. They basically got these dudes out here running out here while these coaches make millions and billions of
yeah.
dollars for these universities, and then they gonna tell you that since Jordan Travis was hurt during the regular season, we can't put him in. Man, let's get out of here, bro. It's a game. It's a game.
Well, the only thing, you going back to the results of this year, like and I mentioned it earlier. I think if Florida State would have had an opportunity to show, because it didn't help when they had to play with their third string because their backup was having a concussion protocol the last
Remember,
game.
Florida knocked him out last week, guys. Remember,
Yeah,
Florida beat
so
him.
but they
Great
only
play.
had 2 games to show what they could do without their starting QB, and those 2 games they looked terrible. Now if he would have got, and you don't want to wish him to get injured because I believe, and the thing about it, I believe Jordan Travis even put on social media. He mentioned this.
He
He was
did.
actually
He did.
apologizing for getting
Yeah,
injured so late. He was like, if this injury would have happened earlier and let my team show what we can do, because unfortunately, he got injured uh, against North Alabama. The next two games, that offense looked terrible.
Look
So
bad. It looked
unfortunately,
bad.
the committee they have to consider that. It was like,
mm,
man, we know y'all have a great defense, and this is a part of our criteria. I mean,
it's,
it's hard, but
so
it goes back an
the show.
undefeated Power Five school. I mean, it's. I mean, I don't know, man.
They're trying to put on the show. Time is priceless. I saw you said the NCAA is all about the money. That you've heard me say it once. I'll say it again, and I won't stop saying it till the NCAA is basically obsolete. They're all about the funds. They're not transparent, even though they say they're supposed to be. And it's a lot of mystery about how things are supposed to go. And then you got teams like this that are upset in these situations. I haven't seen it this much since the playoffs been
Well,
around, the one I can remember where it being the most calls. And this feels like the controversy used to be around when the BCS was there.
well,
Because
one thing
honestly,
real quick, Dante. You mentioned the NCAA, but you remember it's not really the NCAA.
oh,
It's the
that's right.
college football committee. Like it's almost like the Hall of Fame and the NFL. When people get mad at the Hall of Fame, like, hey man, we don't got nothing to do with this. We
Mhm.
just, hey, congratulations, welcome to the Hall of Fame. Was really the voters who determined the Hall of Famers. Well, in this case, the
The
NCAA. Now,
committee.
in basketball, it's NCAA all the way. But in
Yeah,
football,
yeah.
once the
You that
committee
you
take over and you start seeing those initial top four for the playoff, it's the committee. And what is it, a 13 member committee, something like that?
13 member committee. They meet in Grapevine. They meet at
They
the
meet in
I think they meet
Grapevine.
at the big hotel in
I
Grapevine.
should have drove
An-
up there, knocked on the door, and let me
Anonymous.
in.
Should have pulled on up. Pull up on me. Hey, you know the funny thing about it is like they're very similar to the Federal Reserve. We don't know who the people are. That's just that's just how they got this game running, bro. I just look
Yeah.
at it like it's a joke, man. It's a joke because you're telling me now that we're gonna expand it to 12 teams next year. You're gonna get more games, more excitement, so we're gonna get more
More
money.
money.
But the players have the
It-
opportunity to be hurt more, and then you can claim that you like the players and you want to make sure the players are taken care of because they get to play in more games so they can make more money. It's a joke, man. By the time we 80 years old, us guys that's on here, they had these guys playing 20 games damn near, man.
Now I'm with you. They really, to be completely honest, I think that and I know we're gonna transition to the NFL. Northwestern, and I know they got in trouble with the stuff with their coach and everything that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But when those guys were trying to unionize, I felt like that was like a major step to be like, look, and I know it got knocked down, but them doing that and shaking things up, we really get into the place to where I heard someone say this. It almost needs to be like the college football, the players at the high Division 1 level, the Power Five, the top percent. It needs to be like they're contracted out. You can either go to school or not, and you're paid, and you're basically employees of the university because that's basically what's happening now. But they're not employees of the university. They're not per se getting paid. Or you only get paid for your
Yeah, that whole
NIL.
that whole that whole
That's still
NIL thing to me is
the
just
NIL is the biggest
kind of
like, what is the biggest
damn near
joke?
chaos.
Yeah, bro. Some people are getting NIL, and then since it's so loose rules, you
Mm-hmm.
can't you can't regulate who gets it. The only thing is, I don't want the NIL to be to where the big old the useless NCAA is like, well, we making these rules, and they want to call on Congress and all this. It's like, nah, you didn't call on Congress to get them paid. They had to force that themselves to get paid and push for that decision. So it's like, nah, don't let them get in your business now. You fix it yourself. Because if they get their hands on it and do it, it's gonna be back like the old days. Like, yeah, the transfer portal is there, but if you transfer, you gotta owe this money back, and you're gonna get them hoarding guys and holding on to guys and stopping the players from, hey, you went up to the big boy Power Five, it's not working out, transfer down. Go ahead and go to the FCS school. Go have a great experience over at Prairie View A&M. Have a great experience at Southern University. Have a great experience at FAMU. Go over there and be like a James Houston that went to Jackson State, came from Florida, went to the FCS level. Now he's playing for the Lions on every Sunday. Let those, but I'm not for hoarding the guys. Let the guys go if you over recruited. Coaches know they over recruit, and I hate the sit out rule. And if they want to change it and change the transfer portal, well, when you hire this coach from this job, he has to sit out a year. He's the coach in waiting. He can recruit, he can get stuff together, but he can't coach. He's got to sit out a whole year. If you want to go to making all these stipulations, but they don't want to touch, like you said, KB, they don't want to touch the people's money and the coaches and the administrators. They don't want to touch that, but they want to make sure to keep those kids young and broke and hungry. They want to make sure that stays. And that's something that I was like, as it goes on, I could digest it a little bit more because the NIL and some guys are getting taken care of, but I'm all for those guys getting out that have a pro opportunity, get out as soon as you can. And I'll say it once, I'll say it again. If you are a running back, go somewhere where there's an established starter. Don't redshirt, or if you redshirt, when it's your redshirt sophomore year, you are eligible. Go to the league. No matter where you get drafted, go because they're gonna use you up in college before they use you up in the pros. But I don't want to get too off of that because it's like I'm happy about Texas making it, but there's still so many things that I'm not happy about with the NCAA. and with college football playoff as a whole. So I hear you on making the case about Florida State. And so like I said, hey, they do have a case, but switching into talking about huge matchups, as you see in the thumbnail, man, we have another candidate for probably game of the year, even though I think it's one more or two more that might be game of the year in the category legitimately, not hyperbole. But
You
this
talking
week
about
the
the
Cowboys
Bills and
beat
Chiefs?
mm-mm, Raven. It's going to be a little bit different game, but the Ravens and 49ers, those are two of the
Oh yeah,
best seeds. And at the time, they could be the two top seeds in their conference when they play. I think that's one where it's just like, it might not look how you think, but it's going to be two really good defenses. A really good solid quarterback in Brock Purdy, but a unanimous MVP in Lamar Jackson. And so but this week going up, I think the Eagles, they got to lick their wounds. First and foremost, I will say this: I don't like the 49ers at all, but I respect how good they are, and I respect how, hey man, basically I felt like the big dogs in the NFC was 49ers, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and who emerged from game one, the Lions. They came out, beat the Chiefs in their house. They come out with a really, really good, strong record. But those four teams, I think, are the top ones. And the 49ers, obviously, they don't play the Lions, but I mean, absolutely smoked the other two contenders, and the Cowboys and Eagles. And now the Eagles are, back to licking their wounds. And, they talked a lot of trash this week. And Debo Samuels, he stood on business and had a great game. And he told you if we had our quarterback, it wouldn't be close. And it wasn't close. Brock Purdy was healthy and it wasn't close. When you had the scuffle on the sideline, which is ridiculous for a
with your
team employee
security
that's supposed to
guard.
keep people secure. And it's just kind of like that's one of the reasons that annoys me about the Eagles and their fans. Like the meathead stuff like that is not passion. Stuff like that is stupid. Like he should be nowhere near close to that type of situation. It absolutely should be. He shouldn't be even there. Let's like, yeah, I know Drake Greenlaw put his hands on him first. He shouldn't even be in that situation. Like, what are you doing? Football players can police themselves. Like that was absolutely crazy. But to see them play, just dominate them like that, hey man, basically if the Cowboys, we help ourselves if we beat the Eagles. But by beating the Eagles, and if the 49ers win on Sunday, then they'll jump and be the top seed.
I
So
see
it's
Black Man asking if the Cowboys and 49ers NFC Championship game. Right now, because with the Cowboys, they match up better versus the Eagles. They
yeah,
obviously because they're division rivals, so they play each other twice a year. So and but it's pure matchup, and usually in these playoff games, 49ers, because I can just remember last year, Cowboys had a chance, but Trayvon Diggs didn't want to tackle Kittle while Kittle was bobbing the catch. He just whiffed on him.
yeah.
He could have literally dislodged the ball. And it was that drive where the 49ers scored the only touchdown of the game. And the Cowboys couldn't recover from that one touchdown.
Devontae
But a lot
Turpin,
of times,
return man, didn't want to cut the right
yeah,
way for a
it
touchdown. Just the little
they have
small
more
stuff.
playmakers. The 49ers playmakers usually make a play that will determine give them the edge. So in that, I will say until I see the Cowboys playmakers can actually make plays versus the 49ers, because the defense played them hella good last year. It's just that one play. But I would give the edge to San Fran just because of the playmakers. Now the Cowboys, especially when Pollard was gone last year, I knew the Cowboys had no shot. They lost. They only had two playmakers. That was Pollard and Lamb. And once
Yeah,
Pollard went out, it was. But this year, 40. Only thing about the 49ers, as great as a team they are right now, which is funny because I know the talk in the offseason was all about AFC. AFC came in strong in the offseason. Rodgers, not Wilson, because people didn't, they already
Rodgers,
gave up on Wilson.
Mahomes, Allen,
Mahomes,
Cooper,
Allen, they were even looking at Lawrence, uh,
fraud.
uh, the Chargers, Herbert. They were coming in strong, and then the NFC was all about the same three: Cowboys, Eagles, and 49ers. But now, as far as this point of the season, it looks like the NFC is the better conference because even though it's only four teams really, The Cowboys, Eagles, 49ers, and the Lions, unexpectedly, they are playing these teams. I know the Cowboys get grief because people think they're not playing against real competition, but it's usually the Eagles are playing them same teams.
Yeah,
Besides a
yeah,
couple of teams here and there, they playing the same teams, but you don't hear that
they're
about the
playing
Eagles.
they're playing the same teams, and like we mentioned last week about the close games, and it come in a situation where even Vegas had San Francisco as a favorite last week, and San Francisco proved Vegas right in that one. But the fact that for me, the Eagles, they just haven't looked the same. They're still a really good team, and they find ways to win, which is an art
Hmm.
in itself. Until it's hey, you're just not looking good enough. And I
You have
do
to be
think
in the game to find a way to win.
yeah, and I feel like sometimes you hold them to a standard of like, hey, they found a way to win, but at the same time, when you're, I'm a big believer in, I do believe in a lot of analytics. Some of them it's like, some of them not so much. But point differential is something that really holds up well. And if you look up the point differential, the 49ers obviously they have a really strong point differential. They are teams that they are supposed to beat, and even teams that are good, like Philadelphia, they're handling business. The Eagles, on the other hand, it's like they're letting teams like Washington almost beat them twice, and that's just not a predictor that's good for success when you get to playing playoff teams. It's like it's worked out so far, but then they went up this week and it didn't work out. Now we're gonna see if it works out this week when they travel to Dallas, travel and play at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. So it's like we're going to see how it plays out. But I would say they're definitely all cream of the crop in the NFC. But it's like you got to give that edge in the NFC Championship as of right now today. You got to get that to the 49ers. The only thing I can say is hopefully obviously I don't think the Cowboys will play that bad again. I think they will come with a different game plan. But playing them in Santa Clara, that's going to be a
Well,
tough
cause,
tall
but
task.
about that particular game though, it was just a coincidence. Well, I don't know if it's coincidence. That game, because you remember at the beginning of the season, because when the Cowboys and the 49ers play week
Week 5.
3 or 4, week five, the Cowboys was trying to figure out they really didn't have an identity. They was trying to force this run game because you remember during the offseason it was all about Dak and his interceptions.
Limiting the
So they was
turnover.
trying so hard to play away from that happening this year. Dak literally, I mean, he was averaging less than 7 yards a pass. Lamb, Cooks wasn't getting involved in the offense at all. All he kept doing is just running the ball with Pollard and Dak doing these quick passes to get the ball out of his hands quick. They were so worried about interceptions. And after that 49ers game, and they were still playing like that with against the 49ers. That's
Yeah.
when Lamb, it was Lamb. He went up to Dak and McCarthy, and that's where he let his frustrations. Hey man, like, and I think Dak was already kind of getting frustrated too. Whatever this what they call Texas Coast offense, whatever this is right now, it's not working. It's not working. So let's go back, and then immediately you saw them put the ball in Dak's hands that next week there was just the Chargers and so on. That's when you saw this stretch of Dak. Because that's when you recognize, okay, the run game, you just playing off the passing game now. Because they finally seen that our run game is just not there. Pollard is a secondary running back. He's not the primary. But I mean, it is what it is now. But you immediately saw, so if they played against the 49ers again, I think you see a completely different Cowboys team because they whatever they was trying in the beginning of the season, they literally abandoned that. They don't even play like
Wow.
that no more. And
Hold
it
on.
pro- and it goes and it goes to show that they have. I think the Cowboys have since. Because remember, I said Dak was only averaging like less than 7 yards a pass. He was not looking downfield at all. But since then, I think they lead the league in 20 plus yard pass plays. So you
Yeah,
can see just the
they've been
difference.
making
Yeah, so
big
they completely
close
changed.
chunk plays since then. Man, can we put Trey F's comments on the screen? Because that's kind of a
Yeah, talking
controversial
about the
take there, man.
49ers, they and I was looking at that when he's saying like they
Uh,
great regular season team, but with the 49ers, a lot of their players because they had an injury. They suffered an injury. And that was a thing. For a team as great as they are, their big players have a history with injuries.
well,
So they
you want
literally
to.
at the mercy of not getting injured.
What's crazy is what leads into that is this. they play such a physical brand of football, and we talked about it. I think it's been broken at this point. When they play a team, whether they lose or win, that team the next week loses their game because it's kind of like the thought of that they're worn out or whatever like that. And it's just kind of like that's been dispelled. But still, the fact is, when you get late in the season, everybody's banged up. But if you play the most physical style in the league, running in the different formations, the way the tight ends, actual fullback involved, and a tight end that can block too, it's something that makes you think like, hey, maybe that has something to do with it. I think it's maybe something just kind of fluky, but like with the injuries, that is something that is important. So if they do go into the playoffs healthy and they get the number one seed, they're gonna be really tough to beat. Like they are. I can't deny that at all. And it's one of those things to where I always rooting for my team, but it would be a uneasy feeling playing them because we've seen it, this year in the regular season and then the previous two postseasons with them just beating you, when it mattered. That's gonna be and then going into that stadium, I wouldn't have any confidence. It's other than the fact that the Cowboys could be playing against the MVP and the runner-up possibly. He said, "Can the Cowboys win it?" Man, we're not getting into that, man.
Man, me and
I'm not getting
well,
into that.
I don't look at as far as the Cowboys, but hell, just to answer the question, the Cowboys, their roster always looks like it could compete to win a Super Bowl. It's just can they actually execute? They always look like they have a top roster compared to other teams in the league. They up there with them. It's just always something goes wrong, whether it's Dak not playing well or when he was playing well in the playoffs, you had an all-time great throw by the opposing quarterback. It's just always something that goes wrong with them. So I don't really know. Can they
Especially
win a
with
Super
Lord
Bowl?
on.
The roster they can do it. Now this roster, I believe they still a running back away from potentially winning the Super Bowl.
You think it's a running back
They just need to
away?
get to the NFC Championship game.
I actually think the line has been blocking a lot better. And I would say this. I don't want to say this publicly because I haven't really seen any national writer say this. And I might have to knock on. No, actually, I said it, and I'm gonna have to knock on wood. So I'm gonna knock on it beforehand. Man, I can't remember the last time Tyrus Smith played in the gauntlet, which is the 3 games in 13 days. I cannot remember the last time he's done that. He's normally either missed Thanksgiving in the one before, or he's missed the game before, and they was like, "All right, we're gonna play on Thanksgiving." I can't remember the last time he's doing it. And if you ever
I
just
don't think
happen,
he practices. I don't think he
yeah, he
practices
doesn't
anymore.
practice
That's
much.
why.
But if you go out
Yeah.
there and look at that left tackle sometimes, man, and I know I love it when the NFL does their top 100 because they have all the best clips. When they get that clip, and then you hear NFL defender say he gets his hands on you, you're done. And then they show that clip of the guy just getting that's just beautiful football. It's like, bro, you are just stopping that guy. You are absolutely stone cold stopping him. And sometimes I see a guy just flying. I'm like, man, Tyron really still. I see the Cowboys brought him back. He still got it. I was thinking he was going to be
Yeah,
more of a swing kind of
they
situation.
figured out the formula
They
to
figured
help
out the
him.
formula.
If you want him to play on Sundays, don't have him practice. That's basically what
Yeah,
they're doing with him. He
but
just don't
but Trey,
practice. He may practice maybe once a week, but he don't practice. He just go out there
yeah.
and play on Sundays.
I know we got a little bit of time left, and we gotta make through for Mandrell and company to come through. Can you expand on the comment that you made in the chat? It's not my thoughts. I just want you to go ahead and speak your truth, man.
You talking about your 49ers comment, Trey?
Your 49ers comment.
I'm sorry. Is it any 49? Hey, what's up, fellas? How y'all doing, man?
What's up,
What's going
man?
on, man? Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm okay. I see you got your hat on. I'm glad to see somebody at least like. Is it the Lakers or LeBron? First of all, is it LeBron?
No. I've been on Lakers since I was 9. So.
Oh, okay, it's 6 years ago. Okay, so the 49ers, they look good, man. They look good regular season. The key to them is going to be McCaffrey. He's been playing it up all-star. Probably could be the MVP if he scored a touchdown every game on out, which they're going to definitely set him up for it. But if he do, he could be your new MVP. Y'all had a conversation about the quarterbacks last week being the MVP. He could be. They need a golden boy. They need him, and he can do it, though. He can do it if he score a touchdown on that. But if he has any high ankle sprains, any twists, anything in their offense get thrown off, they're gonna struggle. Anything in their offense get thrown off, whether it's a receiver, running back, quarterback, it's thrown off for them. And look, San Fran got one of the best systems in football. That's why they got McCaffrey out of Carolina. He was getting broke up. They had to get him somewhere to protect him to be longevity in the NFL because he got the last biggest contract they're going to give. They wasn't going to give it to a brother. No, he got the last biggest contract they're going to give. Understand, on the true money part. You see how quick Derrick Henry ain't getting no more of those.
Derrick Henry didn't get that back. I do think you're right on that one. I think they've suppressed the market enough. The next question, and I think they're already starting to do it, they are messing up my boy from Texas, Bijan Robinson, sitting them out and doing things with him. And it's kind of like they see the Zeke formula, and they know if you come out and you start him off at a certain place, so he's already making some of the most in the league, and he could progresses and plays well, you're going to have to pay him. And I think they're automatically suppressing him a little bit.
But that's the NFL monster. That's where the monster comes in. That's what the monster, because really, if anybody if they try to do away with the running backs, and if anybody that play football still watch football, they might as well go coach flag football here on out.
Well, it's just all that because basically the physicality they took away. When I hear that, I be thinking, the NFL just, they got hit hard with them lawsuits. So I mean, it's like, because it's basically it came down to either when Congress and them, when all that stuff went to court and all that, either y'all take care of this or Congress is going to regulate this. And by far they ain't gonna want this outside piece regulating their game, so they had to take care of it. And if that's like trying to take away some of the hard collisions and stuff that was in the past, so they everything was changing once they go sit in that courtroom. So I understand, because the players are bigger, faster, and stuff in today's game, but then how the game is so lenient towards offensive players compared to defensive players. Defensive players, they can't do anything by getting the flag.
But really quick, one, as far as the league, it's a bad connection. Y'all hear that?
I can hear you.
I can't hear y'all. Hear a buzzing sound?
No.
Really quick, as far as the league, all NFL fields, knowing the severity of these players, all NFL fields should be grass. Every last one of them. They moving that big. They move that big and that strong, especially today. They're a lot fast. All NFL fields should be grass, hands down. You can't have. Listen, these guys are running 4-4, 4-2, 4-3, 4-5. Linemen running 4-6, coming at you head. You got to put it all grass. Because then you're thinking about the history of football. Football will go on long after we gone. They shifting the dynamic. They got to if they spread the money out in football, make everybody around the same, man, football be a hell of a game. It's changing. And the 49ers, as long as they stay healthy, they all right. Anybody get hurt in that offense. So
yeah, that's their biggest thing. What's up, Mr. Bennett?
What's good, gentlemen? And once again, tag team with my brother Trey against the boys from Texas. Y'all sound like more like Skip Bayless on the other show talking about the Dallas Cowboys all the time. That's like every show we gotta touch the Cowboys or something. But hope you guys are doing well. But I just got one question for Shawnee. Shawnee, are you feeling this way?
You talking about falling in love with the Cowboys?
Questions for you. No, my question's for you. Are you falling in love with love? My man for the Packers, he balled out. He beat Patrick Mahomes. I'm telling you, coming.
Matter of fact, let me look up his last stats because I was
Brother
telling
Benny, he
somebody
called
over the
that.
weekend because I was asking, I was like,
He
this could
called
have
that.
this could potentially be a sneaky good game when they were playing against the
Yeah.
Chiefs. But let me see.
Mr. Bennett, I'm on board because it's feeling like, and I know it's tough to do, and you can only do it like. And I don't want to talk about the Cowboys. You used to say I don't to talk about, but the Packers are an organization without an owner, without a traditional owner in a sense.
Mhm.
So you can kind of have more time. Just like with the Steelers, you get more of a chance. You get more leeway to grow, cultivate your program, and the old school fashion.
Right.
Sitting a quarterback is not the worst thing in the world. Letting him develop and grow and look ugly, like, oh, he looks terrible, he looks terrible, he looks terrible. And then you keep going, and then even though you don't have the best player, the greatest, the number one picks, but you still got some second round picks. Christian Watson, he looks, when he's on and healthy, he looks phenomenal. And you got a great pass blocking offensive line. Next thing you know, he knows the offense. He's coming in and it comes together. He gets the game reps, he gets time on task. And then you look up and it's just like, it clicked for me on Thanksgiving. I was like, well, finally I get to see the Lions look good on Thanksgiving. Because Thanksgiving, like, I don't know about y'all. I'm always said everything around. We eat at 2:00. We know Cowboys play. Watch Lions games normally. We'll either watch the other team. Like last year, Josh Allen comeback was great. But I'm like, I get to catch the Lions. I got some of the guys on fantasy. And then they turned into the Jordan Love show. And I was like, oh. I said, oh, okay.
Time out.
I see.
Time out.
What's that?
Last week, Brother Benny mentioned that Jordan Love, and nobody was like, nah. And now we see.
I'm all on the.
Brother
Shorty
Benny,
had to hold out a little bit. Shorty was convinced, bro. But
I wasn't convinced because I like to wait and see.
Lions.
Yeah, cause I like to wait and see because I be seeing players.
They got so much that I like.
They will spark and then they will kind of flame out. Now I say this about Love because it's interesting how people, because I'm not an overreactor whether if a player is struggling or if they have a success. I like to wait to see how they I give them, especially like Love. He's a young quarterback. He's gonna have his bumps. You gotta see if he can make his adjustments at a pro level and go. I saw the same thing with C.J. Stroud in Houston, where I believe during the preseason he was looking terrible, and they were still questioning.
Yeah.
And now look at him, and so it's just amazing how quick people are. So, Love was the first 5-6 games of the season. He wasn't playing up there, so people are so quick to throw them in the trash. You will give up on the quarterback.
right.
And then you're like, no, man, give him time. Let him adjust to the speed. Let him adjust, because it's one thing to have him sit, behind Rodgers and whatnot. But when you get on the field against that same defense, it takes some time for you to digest. And the biggest thing for a quarterback, all the time you hear about the arm strength and the mobility, but I still think the biggest attribute a QB can have is their ability to break down the defense. That takes time. You just can't put them on the field and they automatically do that. Once they start looking at the film. And I believe I think I heard Michael Vick mention this one time. I was watching a show of the Pivot. It just clicks. All that film they watching, they trying to study and whatnot, but when they see enough, it'll just click. And you're starting to see that with Love. Now, on the flip side, you see how Love is progressing his game now with the Jets. And I kind of how they are with Wilson. I'm kind of like, I understand because you hear the reports now that how Wilson is, he's kind of hesitant of, they say they trying to give him, okay, you go back and start.
He started.
He's like, I don't know.
He started.
But he was hesitant in doing that. But I kind of agree with him because they keep ping ponging him. It's like
you ping ponging me. The line isn't good, and at this point, even though like first round picks get a lot of grace, he knows if he comes out and looks trash again, it's over. It's nothing but it's nothing but backup duty, and
Because all you're
he's
doing
going
is
to get
just
the
killing
kind of
his
backup
confidence
duty
right
is.
now.
But I
Yeah,
don't
he'll
agree
have to
with
get
him.
he'll have to go
I
and
don't
play
agree
for
with him.
the quarterback gurus,
I
the
don't
Sean
agree with him.
McVay where you sit and then you go. But
I don't agree
go ahead,
with him.
Trey.
I don't agree with him. Y'all dog, man, people all over the country, y'all dog my brother Justin Fields out. And he's learning he's learning. They dog him out. Now
There you go.
New
You
York
sure?
New York is a tough crowd. Y'all know this. Every state
And
in the
Chicago ain't no cakewalk either. So I'm with you,
NBA.
Trey. I'm with you. And that's a you talk about a passionate fan base. That's a passionate fan base that's hungry for good quarterback play.
But the only thing, but I say about this between Chicago and the Jets, Chicago Fields is their quarterback until he's injured. That's the only time he's off the field. But he's their quarterback, and they're just going to ride with him until they got to make a decision this offseason whether they want to, potentially go draft a new QB or extend it.
They better lock him
What the
in.
Jets are doing.
Let me just add one more caveat for you guys.
Yeah.
Just love discussion. Now, again, they're 6-6. I believe right now, I think they're the 6th seed in the NFC.
They're the 7th seed. They're in there.
Okay, but look at
the
schedule.
They will play San Francisco today.
They play the Giants. They play the Buccaneers, the Panthers, the Vikings, and the Bears. They can run the table on all them games, guys. So if Jordan Love gets into the playoffs in his first full year as a starter with the Packers, hey, sky's the limit for this game. For this year. Sky's the limit.
Yeah, the only team that's been eliminated is Carolina.
But another thing, really quick, it's my last thing. Another thing about somebody in Jordan Love's position, he learned from a Hall of Fame MVP quarterback. So even though he
but I don't know how Rodgers. I think he was getting kind of how Favre was treating Rodgers. I don't know how much Rodgers was behind Love as far as mentoring.
He don't have to listen. He don't have to. Rodgers don't have to be behind him. Jordan Love is in the NFL. Only thing Jordan Love has to do is get this timing down. NFL's different because in practice they set up scenarios, but in the game, that motherfucker running over 2 seconds. You like, oh, okay, and that's why, like I said, when it clicks in the quarterback, the whole game slow down. It clicked with the Holmes.
Yeah, in the field.
Andy Reid, he's a quarterback offensive mind. Like, I'm gonna show you when to break it, and they've been timing it ever since. The other quarterbacks, they ain't really got no quarterback coach, and I think your boy down in Houston. Reason why he's so good because the coach let him know you the man. We ain't discussing quarterback, and he just fell into the game. It's watch next. It's
speaking of him, I'm so glad when I get the games where the Cowboys are on later and they don't normally do it, and they normally don't get us the Texans in our market. But being able to see CJ Stroud these last couple of weeks, like I'm excited that he plays good. I wish I got quarterback play that good when I was living in Houston. I'd sit there and watch. Boy, that was rough.
Watson.
But I wasn't living there when Watson was there. I had already moved back here. But it was crazy. When I was there, it was still I had to set up a Matt Schwab and it's good to see Stroud because I just like the stereotype, the broken of. I had a friend of mine that was like, man, Ohio State quarterbacks, I don't trust them. I was like, look, don't look at the school, evaluate the player. Like, yeah, I believe you that you have all these weapons around you and that, sometimes you have a great line. And when you go against other teams, sometimes you just look fantastic. And then sometimes your B dropped 50 tonight. Damn. But it's like when you get to the league, you don't have all those resources. But what he showed me against that Georgia team, that was my last thing where I was like, you know what? I'm going to beat my chest out. I'm going to be like, look, I thought CJ Stroud and Bryce Young were both going to be really good. I'm still holding out court on Bryce just because it's been such a bad deal. Yeah, it looks like he's got a terrible owner. They don't have the first overall pick like they should have to get more talent and pieces. So they're going to have to spend money, and they're going to have a hell of a time finding a head coach, which I don't know if he should take it, but I would like to see a young quarterback with him and my guy from Washington, the coordinator,
I'll take it.
Enemy.
If I take the job, y'all won't be my assistant coaches.
Man, I do it. I'm taking it. I'm moving. I'm first flight moving.
You want to coach football, man? You want to go out there?
Well, you brought up their schedules. I'm over here looking at it now, and yeah, they actually have a favorable schedule. The only I mean, I try not. I try to. I try to take every team. I try to take every team. You got to play it on the field. But
Yeah.
they playing teams that are just struggling. They don't know, like the Giants, the Panthers. We already talked about the Bears. The only team that I can see them potentially being in the game with them is Minnesota, but they not even playing well right now. I think they
Yeah, they think about
they
going. They about going away from Dobbs, which
yeah,
is
exactly.
crazy to me. You got to keep. I think you got to keep riding that in. But I want to. I know
But
this is a
Tampa
tough
Bay,
topic here.
I forgot about Tampa Bay. They look like
That
I
might be
think
the
that
only
game, the
that might be
Packers
the only
versus
tough
Tampa
one on the
Bay.
schedule, but I think
Yeah,
it's doable, though, for sure.
I think Mike Evans, Mike Evans is just quietly just destroying boys down in Tampa, but they
Yeah,
not getting no
he's
point.
still.
But Mike Evans is right now. He wrecking shop down there in Tampa right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get my boy Khalid back on, man. I'm gonna have to tell him. I don't see how you don't see this man as a number one. I guess you too close to it as a fan, but this guy, like they said,
Oh,
10
that's right. He
seasons,
sold. He sold.
10,000.
Don't see Mike Evans like as a number one.
He's more of a, and I'm like, which I've heard people having a high opinion on what's a one, and it's just like sometimes you gotta give it time. Like we was talking about that,
They
but
were saying
two
CeeDee
things I
Lamb
want to
wasn't a
speak
one
on.
receiver.
I know. Speaking of the NFC South, is the Falcons really gonna win that division? Because I always expect them to foul it up and lose it, but now they got a two game lead on that bad boy.
And the thing about that NFC South, you got to
if Atlanta
remember
run the ball.
No,
if
one game
but
lead.
because they
Oh, that's right. It's
all,
one, just over one over Tampa.
yeah, I think they
And
all,
New Orleans, believe it or not, they're still their game.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
but
They still in it.
they will host the NFL game. Whoever the winner at that, they will host a playoff game.
Right.
So potentially the Cowboys, if the playoffs start today, the
The
Cowboys will
Cowboys
be
are
a
the
wild card
Eagles.
team. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm like, you gonna have to go play a team that's probably gonna end up what 8 or 7 and 9, whatever they're gonna be, and they gonna host a
9-8,
playoff game.
8-9.
Yeah, I'm like, that don't make sense. But the same thing though, Mr. Bennett, with the Packers, because they have the same record. Because I believe there's three. It's several NFC teams with currently a 6-6 record. So it's just like, I mean, it's a race for that final wild card spot,
Yeah.
and I don't know what
Packers,
the hell they're gonna
Rams,
do.
Seahawks. Packers, Rams, Seahawks are all 6-6. And the Seahawks, I mean, they gotta get to winning. Only problem is their next two games are San Francisco
Yeah, schedule's really
on the road,
showing up right
and then Monday night at home against Philly. They flex. That's the first Monday night flex that they flex. If they want to get their act together and beat Philly for me, I won't be mad at them. I won't be mad at them at all.
Green Bay definitely has, I think, the favorable schedule down the stretch. So
Exactly. They do.
How many
I know Love isn't a rookie, but again, his first year starting, I know Stroud has been impressive. But again, if he gets his team in the playoff in his first year as a starting QB, they should make a rookie rule, even though he's not a rookie. But again, first year starters almost you need to make an exception. But that would be more impressive than Stroud is doing in Houston right now.
Stroud is the rookie of the year if he stays healthy and Houston wins half the games. He's rookie of the year. But I'll say this as far as the divisions in the league right now, I can say that they'll probably go down to the last week at least. How many divisions is it all together?
Yeah.
It's
always usually it's the
8.
South, the north, south, west, east
in total.
So
it's 8 in total, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think at least 6 of them will go down to week 18, 19. It's going to be
speaking of which
game on we going.
And you know they keep those division games at the last game of the season. The NFC South and those teams hate each other. The Falcons and the Saints play week 18. That game might get flexed to either the 3:00 spot or if they do a Sunday night game. Even though I don't mind it when they do just having the noon games and the 3:00 games, so that everybody that's fighting for spots with each other are playing at the same time. I like when they do that because sometimes they end up like last year where Green Bay, and Detroit goes up to Green Bay and they were out of it because of the way things fell, but they still fought for it and won that game. And that's when I really was just like, you know what, Detroit, I'm gonna go ahead and buy in fully for coach of the year too. Dan Campbell's up there for coach of the year. And it's
Dante,
just
look, you done teleported on us for a quick second. You was talking, and you went
Yeah,
from one screen to the other side, and it was a blip. We didn't hear
he
stuff
messed
for a
me
it
up
did.
too. He messed
It
y'all
kind
up
of
too.
it looked like that Thanos snap real quick,
Yeah,
man.
man,
But
he just
nah,
disappeared and came back.
nah.
But yeah, go ahead, Dante.
No, I was gonna say, man, it's some real good games coming up that's gonna decide a lot. Like as far as the playoff race, as far as MVP races and stuff. Because like the Cowboys are basically already in their stretch. And I want to say this because I didn't mention this earlier. Hey man, we have some goalposts moving. So I was at a work outing. I come back, I watched the fourth quarter of the game. I was like watching it at the work outing, listening on the radio. I get back and I see the Amazon crew, and these former players got to stop turning into the guys that they media types that they don't like. So it's like, oh, the Cowboys can't beat the old 500 team. Where they come and then like Tony Gonzalez is like, well, it was a close game. I'm like, well, you're gonna play a close game against a good team. So I was like, I don't know. And then when I heard Richard Sherman talk, I was like, all right, you host the show with Skip. I can't really validate a lot of your opinion because you're going, well, they're not gonna. It's like, don't talk about winning the Super Bowl. Don't move the goalposts. He said, can they beat a winning team or can they beat a good team? And Geno Smith, props to them for seeing the talent in him. Looked really good. Was throwing darts. Made one or two mistakes in that game, and they can win that game. Like when he threw that pick, but it's just like he was throwing darts. Cowboys won against a good team. I do think San Francisco is probably going to beat Seattle, but I think Seattle plays a lot better just because they know that playoff life is on the line. But between them fighting for a playoff seed, 49ers fighting to get the one seed, basically having to win out, but then having some tough games, it's going to be really exciting to see down the stretch. But that Cowboys and Miami game, that's the one I'm really concerned. I do think we can beat Philly, but that game, just because of their speed. That speed that they play with, where you got to play that big soft zone, he can still get behind it. And, so the only thing is with them, they don't play against good teams either. So it's kind of like the teams that they say can't beat a good team, somebody got to win the damn game. So
It's funny how the Cowboys came back in on the slide, but I appreciate that.
man, we talking about the playoff race. I can't talk about you want to talk now? I want to ask you, Mr. Bennett. Speaking of your team, what do y'all gotta? What should be a layup this week?
Typical. No, it's no layups. Look, in the Tomlin era, I love Mike Tomlin, but the Steelers, they always play to the level of the competition, bro.
You're not leaning up by trying to move Tomlin away from Tomlin, are you?
So I'm not moving away. I'm just saying,
okay.
No game with him as a layup because I think he has to play with a level of discomfort. So it's like no game is easy for me. All these games are just ugly all the time. So look, I'm actually looking forward to seeing Mitch get the starts. I think he's more willing to take shots down the field than Kenny Pickett. So I'm hoping they can open it up a little bit more with Mitch. He may throw a couple.
That surprises me.
He may throw a couple picks, but at least you get stand a better chance of him taking some risks downfield, especially when you got a home run hitter like Pickens.
And I was about to go there. That surprised me because during the offseason, you kept hearing about Pickens, but he's not using them.
But he's too concerned. I mean, you hear these stats. He hasn't thrown an interception like in so many quarters or whatever, and he's like holding on. Like he'd rather play.
Everybody was blaming Matt Canada though.
Yeah,
everybody wanted to blame Matt Canada. Now he's out.
My process reduction now it's on Kenny Pickett, and then soon in time they're going to get rid of Tomlin for 10 years.
Yeah,
so good everything.
They just looking for
that's the
enemies
football
around
monster.
But Marcus, I'm with you. What you said, I do like the Ravens' chances. I like their chances of getting to the AFC Championship at minimum. I do like their chances of that just because, that's such a strong team on both sides of the ball. But the fact that to me, a lot of people don't believe it. They can play a style where they can throw it a little bit more because they have some receivers. That's Zay Flowers, receiver. I really like him. It does hurt not having Mark Andrews. But the other receivers that they have, they can get the ball to them, and that running game is always so potent because when you're in a shotgun, you have to account for Lamar Jackson, so that opens up the lanes in the running game. They just have to. To me, their thing is scoring points. You're not always going to be in that place where you're going to be able to run it down the throat. You're going to have to sometimes come out, be aggressive, take some shots, but when they take the shots, the receivers got to make plays. They have to make those plays. So I'm a proponent of the Ravens actually doing something. And I think they're kind of on the radar right now, kind of flying under the radar just a little bit. as a top seed, I'm hoping their game against the 49ers gets flexed. Actually, they can't because it's a Monday night game. So they're not going to let go of that one. But that you want to talk about the big physical teams, you want some old school football, that's going to be a physical game, and the Ravens aren't going to stray away from that. Not at all.
I can't help it that I'm custom made. I can't help it that I look good, smell good, can dance all night long. I can't help it.
But see, the thing, and Trey, I'm about to slide in just a little bit more Cowboys here, just a little bit, because you hear all the time with the Cowboys, in particular Dak and his lack of success in the playoffs. And I was mentioning, I was having like an internet debate with somebody several weeks ago about this. But Lamar Jackson, I think, is in the same boat because he doesn't have as much success. And I know a lot of people like to point out the lack of weapons that he's had over the years. And finally, this season, he has some legit weapons. Well, okay, that's granted. That's universally known. But Jackson was still wrecking shop in the past regular seasons, especially you saw how he was when he won the MVP. You would figure, I guess, that there's something. I mean, back when he had that lesser talent around him, in particular his receiving position, he was still wrecking shop. Somewhere between the regular season and jumping over into the playoffs, he was not the same quarterback, and he only has one playoff victory. So, looking at answering Marcus' question about do I believe they can make it to the AFC Championship game, has people look at the Cowboys, in particular Dak, and how they got this big question mark with him. I have that same question mark with Lamar Jackson because I don't know, and it could be a you got to really go back and watch the playoff games because a lot of time football, you got to look at the games because the ball bounces just in different ways between winning and losing.
Yeah.
But just with him, the lack of playoff success, I just don't hear that. It's like he gets the benefit of the doubt with not having the weapons.
And I think it's the benefit of the doubt thing.
He should.
Go ahead.
One caveat: he doesn't have his tight end on Andrews, so that could come back.
But okay, so he does have Andrews. So now if they don't progress to at least the AFC Championship game this year, that's going to be another benefit of the doubt for. Well, you didn't have your tight end. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'll take it just like this because we give Lamar Jackson a whole lot of flack, and us as Brown people, we give him flack. What's the difference between Lamar Jackson and Dan Marino? Dan Marino did everything the same thing, but Lamar Jackson, his weapon is his legs. His weapon.
Oh yeah. No.
In the past regular seasons, he did a lot. He was running and passing. Now he's mastered the passing game.
They cut the check, and he's not going. They don't want that.
And they sort of been able to sort of build up guys that can keep up with Lamar's space. And I think it's gonna for them to advance. The secret is gonna be him and Beckham get into a niche where they start connecting and they keep mixing it up. And the defense they can do some damage because Kansas City, you don't know where they are right now, but Kansas City still is the man over there. So if somebody knock Kansas City out, then I think Baltimore could actually go for the AFC. But Lamar Jackson can't be messing up. But somebody got to get Kansas because we just seen what happened to Kansas.
Well, that somebody is going to be within them. It's that receiving core. And I always, as great as a quarterback as Patrick Mahomes is, one thing and I don't know why some people just don't get this. When it comes to, they quick to say the football is the ultimate team sport. But when a quarterback, and I guess it's just the nature of the position, with Patrick Mahomes, the way they talk about him, they make it down look like this dude is going out there and just doing everything by himself. And my whole thing was like, dude, at one time you have probably the most explosive receiver in your repertoire with Tyreek Hill, and now you have arguably pretty much believe that Travis Kelce can potentially be the best tight end of all time.
Yeah.
So basically, you have two Hall of Famers. 2 Hall of Famers, and he was using them as great. I believe you're a great quarterback. You got to have great weapons so you can achieve great success, which KC was doing. Now, there's nothing wrong with Mahomes now, but his receiving core is what's letting him down. Travis Kelce is not putting up the near career numbers that he was last year.
Yeah, but
and
they're
you
still
see that.
8-4. But they're still 8-4.
They're still 8-4, but they're squeaking them out some
really quality.
No, they are, but again, they're still getting the wins, and you got to give some of that credit. The decision making, when to run, when not to run. The guy. I mean, the last Super Bowl performance when he was clearly injured, but still he would use his legs. I mean, the guy is just like the ultimate gamer. I mean, sometimes
and that's my thing. Mahomes is still Mahomes.
Tangibles though, yeah.
He's still Mahomes because it's no question mark with me about Mahomes. He's still the great Hall of Fame quarterback.
It's the other guys.
It's the other guys. His receivers are letting him down.
Rashid Rice, is he going to step up?
Yeah, they are letting him down.
With all the talent he's had, is he ever going to show up? So I feel it. I also think, just depending on how the matchups go, Mahomes was weird enough. He's never played a road playoff game. He's been that prolific. He's never played a road playoff game. And so right now, he would have the first round matchup of the Browns, easy dub, just because I just don't see the level of quarterback play coming into, whether it be PJ Walker. He said KC is overrated this year. So I love him.
Respond back to that.
I mean, when you've been that good for that long, people tend to make those excuses for you. I mean, I remember making those excuses for the guy at number 12 that just left, Brady. They made those excuses for him. So I would say this year, if you want to say it, I'll say the offense is overrated. Their defense is not. Defense has literally held them in games where it's looked ugly, which is weird to see a quarterback that good with only one good weapon, but a strong defense, and they changed how they want to build their team and how to get the results from that. So as critical as I am of other general managers for not getting things done, I think we should be critical of the Chiefs front office to be like, hey, get your guys some weapons. I didn't even hear any murmurs about them being involved with any trade deadline deals. So, I mean, it's right now that take is going to hold up really well about Kansas City. And I know they made an excuse for that pass interference call. I didn't, just because they got that free 15 yards when it was like close, but he was in bounds and they got the 15. So I feel like penalties, things like that, sometimes they negate themselves. The PI where he jumped on the guy's back and then they didn't call it. And he was just like, and I was like, yeah. So I felt like you even those out and, you just lost the game and, Jordan Love, played a really good game. I played it. So
before we go
on that loss of business.
I want to hear Trey and Mr. Bender's opinion on what Lost in Translation just put up about his KC, talking about he believes KC is overrated, and then people make excuses for KC.
I don't see it. Look, they could easily have at least 2 more wins, at least had they had receivers who can catch the football. So the ball was put where it needed to be, and so and that was a not look. Browns beat the 49ers. They did have that hiccup or whatever. They seemed they corrected that. I don't even know if they were at full strength on the defense at the time. I think they had a couple key guys who were out. So and the Browns, they're floundering. They're floundering right now without their QB. So again, I look at that win against upset the 49ers as an anomaly. They were in a slide. So again, I'm not doing that. But again, KC. They easily have at least 2 more wins, if not be the number 1 seed in the AFC right now. And you could almost go to the games and see the actual plays. The game before this one, the guy had in his hands the go-ahead touchdown to win, dropped it. So
it's because he's a body catcher.
Yeah,
he couldn't put his body on that ball. Trey, I do the same thing. I don't know how a professional receiver does not use his hands.
That makes no sense. Come on,
bro. You use your body if you're in traffic so you can protect the ball. Brother. But dude, your hands got to be the first.
Terrence Williams was a body catcher too. Man, it was weird. He was like that. Terrence Williams, Cowboy, he was a body catcher.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
I watched Jerry Rice and Randy Moss, so I don't care about nobody.
Pure hands.
But the best hands I ever saw was Chris Carter. Chris Carter had the best.
He was okay. But I say this.
The gun shooting the ball, he just catch it with one hand or whatever. I mean, he just had Spider-Man gloves on. So whatever.
Let me ask about Patrick Mahomes. If you look at it, Patrick Mahomes, if he couldn't play no more after next Sunday, he'll still be a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Go Jackets.
And I like Patrick Mahomes because Patrick Mahomes has a different sense about the game. He's not just
you tripping.
playing quarterback. He's elevated Kelsey. He's elevated the team. Everybody's behind him, but he plays good football. He puts his team in a position to win. It doesn't matter. He played whether he win or lose. And Patrick Mahomes is just different as far as quarterback. That's why they got it. And I think this was mentioned. That's why the black quarterback is here to stay, baby. They can ready to take over. They can ready to take over. I'm telling you, because
Caleb coming. I said Caleb is coming.
Well, it's
another good crop.
I still got to wait and see.
But as far as Kansas City, they do get at home. You know, I don't know. They get a couple of calls, but as far as they don't really they don't lose. It's like Kansas City don't lose games. You got to beat them.
Oh yeah, that's how they always do. Yeah, you want to beat KC. They ain't gonna give you the game.
And then and look, this is Kansas City weather. It's cold as hell in Kansas City in December. Let Baltimore, Lamar, and them go up there think whoever gonna be there. Let somebody think they gonna go up there and walk away. No, Kansas City is ready to play. And I don't even like Kansas City, but I like Patrick Mahomes.
I like him a lot, man. But fellas, man, I know we don't win a while. No more guy Sonny. He gotta get out of here. I know I heard my little ones. I gotta go and put them to bed. So I do appreciate y'all for joining us again. Man, I see you got the Benny. You got the bag right there, but you getting it in?
I got my heavy bag here, so I got the speed bag, I got my stuff, so yeah, so I get down in here. Yeah.
Oh, I respect it, man. But I guess again, I remember you. I appreciate y'all coming out. And then, Black Man, you went. You lost it last week. You said the Seahawks. You put your guarantee on it. I know you already said the Eagles, so
Yeah, go ahead and put your guarantee on the Eagles.
Put your guarantee on that one. I want all that mojo.
Hey, Dallas getting their ass whooped this weekend. That's for damn sure.
I'll text him after the game.
He don't like the Cowboys.
Nah, he
Hey, Sean, you not going to the game?
Nah, man, that damn Jerry, he charged you damn much.
Yeah, I seen the standing room only is $334.
And you got two potential playoff teams. Nah, that would be ridiculous, the price of that game. But yeah, I appreciate y'all boys for joining us, man. Appreciate the good combo as always. And
Appreciate y'all, man.
I don't know if Dante's still there or not, but I guess this is the 1-on-1 Sports Show, and we'll see y'all next week.
Peace out, guys. Take care.
Peace.